Welcome to Blooming Breakers 2, located in beautiful historic Ocean Grove. It's a wonderful place to be for the summer, but it's been a lot of work to get us to this point. The beautiful orange house used to be a horrible dingy gray. It's now, I think, the happiest house in town. Gardening is a challenge because spaces are really tiny, and the backyard, although beautiful at this point, faces west and south, so it gets really hot in the afternoon. This porch is the place to be, to put your feet up, to do a little people watching, and get a completely different way of life than living at the farm. So let me show you a couple of things that we've done, and then I'll take you for a tour inside. The garden beds in the front are very shade oriented, and if you notice, they're mirror images of each other because the house is a duplex. Also, a mirrored image inside. Notice the beautiful green and white bruneras that are also shade tolerant, and in the spring get just an array of tiny blue flowers. In a distance, you probably wouldn't even notice them, but right up against the sidewalk, you can't help but see them as you walk by. There's some liriope for some late bloom in September, and tiny miniature hydrangeas flank the ends. Up against the house are sky pencil hollies. Around the sky pencil hollies are thriving lilies of the valley. The purple impatiens will give us color all summer, and basically it's a low maintenance, easy care, mostly perennial garden. Around the side of the house, you can see that is the edge of our property. The sidewalk marks the end. The houses were always intended to be very close together. Remember, this was a time in the 1800s, long before cars were a problem. So in order to decorate and soften that side of the house, I've put a variety of containers and rescued a little Victorian bench that was scheduled for the trash. Flowers everywhere, containers, everything we can do to make it a garden. The hanging baskets on the porch were selected, I planted them myself, and each plant was selected to have a really good chance of producing flowers in the shade. So this is the entrance to Blooming Breakers 2. Come on, I'll show you inside. Backyards in Ocean Grove are notoriously small. This one is actually large by comparison, but it is still a different kind of gardening than it is at the farm, for sure. To cram a lot into a small space is an entirely different feel because you're looking at it all up close than what you're trying to do on a 10-acre farm. This trellis was built by my son with a little help by my husband, and it's just plain little one-by-ones, but we took this from the farm. This is actually wisteria vine. When I pruned the wisteria, I saved the prunings and wrapped it around to soften it. Not only does it make the wood a little more attractive, but it allows for this clematis, which is blooming here and has tiny tendrils. It gives it a place to cling to. The climbing rose and the beautiful purple clematis together make a lovely look. We have hostas and daylilies, and climbing on the fence next to the very cute smallest garden shed in the world is climbing hydrangea, which is just now finishing up its blooms, but really softens the fence. The fence, of course, is critical for privacy down here, but it does sort of have a severe look. So the climbing plants soften it, as well as the hanging baskets and all the wonderful hooks. There's no place to hang a bathing suit. You don't want to put up a clothesline, so the hooks on the fence serve double duty. They're both attractive and kind of fun looking, but give you a place to hang a wet bathing suit. Now on the far other side of the garden, we have the outside shower, which is really very reminiscent of Victorian changing booths on the beach, made of canvas and bright colored stripes. Very easy. We take it down in the winter, bring it in. And we also have a grill, but some wonderful hanging baskets of portulaca and flowers in the ground. We have daisies and zinnias coming, and the irises have finished up. So every time you come here, there's something different, something interesting. The garden's never the same 2 visits in a row, which makes it fun, makes it a little bit of hard work to stay on top of it, but makes it a secret garden of perfect beauty. Well, welcome to the kitchen at Blooming Breakers 2. And since we're not on the farm, please note that we have a chicken theme going on here. It started out when one friend gave me one chicken, and now they're everywhere. But it's fun, since I can't bring the chickens to the beach. It's nice to have some chickens here. And I'm making a wonderful summer treat. It's called Jell-O Supreme, and I think the company that makes Jell-O came out with it originally, but my sister gave it to me, and I modified it since then, so it's Jell-O Supreme a la Pegi, I guess. But I'm using, and this is really a double batch, but we love the stuff, so it's enough if you are serving it at a party, really, to put out as either part of the main meal or as a dessert, because it works very well either way. So I'm using 4 boxes of strawberry Jell-O in this case, but I'm pretty flexible. Any kind of red Jell-O works. I like raspberry a lot too. So you put the 4 boxes in here. I'm using this big pot because it makes quite a bit. And while I have almost everything I need at my beach house kitchen, I don't have as much room to store as many nifty things, so I kind of have to make do. So instead of putting in 2 cups of water per box, I'm putting in 1 cup of water. Now I pre-measured the water and it's in the tea kettle, so when that comes to a boil, I will just pour the whole thing in. And you have to make sure you stir it up really, really good, since you're not using as much water. I have observed in the past that it has a tendency to get a little thick on the bottom, so you have to make sure that you stir it up really well. Now, some of the other things that you need to make this is chopped walnuts, 1 can of crushed pineapple, and we have lots of mixed fruit frozen berries. Now, the original recipe just called frozen strawberries. I like the mixed berries better. And finally, we need 6 bananas that have to be mashed. And since I don't really have a good masher, I'm just going to throw them in the blender down here. So we'll wait till the water boils, and then I'll show you what's next. Well, the water's boiling, so we'll just pour it in here. Okay. We'll stir it up, make sure it gets nice and dissolved. I've tried making it with just hot tap water, and that's never hot enough. You really need to use boiling water. Okay. Now's where it gets fun. First, we're going to put in the crushed pineapple. Okay, I'm going to drain the juice from the pineapple into a glass, which of course I'll drink later. But the juice from the pineapple can inhibit the gelling of the Jell-O, so we're just going to drain it a little bit. Ordinarily, you can't put pineapple in Jell-O, but because this is so concentrated, I think that's what makes the difference. Okay. So that's the crushed pineapple, 1 can. And then we're going to use this, these blended bananas. Next, we add chopped walnuts, and this bag is conveniently 2 cups of chopped walnuts. Okay, that's chopped walnuts. Let's stir that up. It's a beautiful color, but you don't want it to splash on your clothes. Followed by bags of mixed berries. Now the frozen berries allow it to gel very quickly. Okay, so now let's recap. 4 boxes of Jell-O, 4 cups of boiling water, 1 can of crushed pineapple, 8-ounce can, 6 mashed bananas, 2 cups of walnuts, and 3 bags of mixed berries. Now, from here, you need a container, and you put half of it in. And I have here a perfect casserole type dish. And you only put half in. Well, that looks like just about half. Now this will go in the refrigerator to gel, and it's very important not to put this in the refrigerator, because when this gels, we're going to finish it off, and I'll show you that when it's gelled. Because there is so much frozen fruit, it only takes about a half an hour to gel. Here we have it. It's so beautiful. Now, the last ingredient is 2 pints of sour cream. And that gets spread uniformly across the top. And I will spread this out with a spatula and show you what it looks like when it's all done. So now it's nice and even, and then you put the last of the Jell-O. Even this is gelled slightly because of the frozen fruit. And again, another half hour in the fridge should be plenty. This is yummy enough to be served as a dessert, but healthy enough to be served in lieu of a fruit salad. So your choice. I know it doesn't matter when I serve it, it gets gobbled up. You can make this well in advance, the day before, and keep it in the fridge. But because of it doesn't take very long to gel, you can even make it right before your guests are coming. There we go, pretty as a picture, absolutely delicious, and full of antioxidants and all that fruit. So, Jell-O Supreme a la Pegi, a summertime favorite. Well, this is the upstairs, this long, narrow hallway with no windows that's painfully dark. So we offset that problem by painting it a rather bright yellow. Hallway's so narrow, I was afraid we couldn't hang anything on the walls. If 2 people tried to pass each other, whatever was on the wall really was at risk of getting knocked off. So what we did instead was paint each doorway a different color, the color that marks what's in that room. So mine, of course, is purple. Now this is the last room to be finished because we did some replacing of the windows in this room, and I didn't want to paint the trim until we were done. So I'm in the middle of painting the trim on the windows. You can see the one on the left has got 2 coats, and the other windows still are a little shady and are going to get 1 more coat. But I want to show you the ceiling, which we replaced. It had a completely sagging, almost like a hammock in the middle of the room, plaster ceiling. which my husband and my son TJ took down, and we replaced it with this interesting beadboard and put the attractive trim up. I think it looks fabulous, although I have to say I feel like Michelangelina trying to paint the edges of that molding once it was up. But let me show you these new windows, which really were surprisingly nowhere near as expensive as I thought, and the company was able to match the design that goes on the rest of the house. These up and down panels are within the glass, so it makes it very easy to clean, but it has the same look as the original windows, which barely worked at this point. So this gives us the same look. It's consistent throughout the house, even though we're replacing the windows a few at a time. But you have to see this. Look at how easy it is to clean these windows. They come down for easy cleaning on the inside and out. They're white vinyl, so they never need to be painted. They're double glass, so they have insulation. They're an excellent investment. And I love how they look, and they work so easily. These were worth every penny of the investment, but painting the trim up against the white has been a challenge. But the room's almost done, and I want to show you the other rooms that are done. This is my son TJ's room, and it's done in the classic boys blue and white, and he picked out the color and helped with the design. One of the problems in this house, and many beach houses, many older houses, is the closets. They are painfully small, so small that you can't even hang hangers in. We put up bars on the side going from front to back so that they do accommodate hangers. Hanging space is at a premium. So we also put these hooks up here, which can accommodate hangers, or you can just hang things on them. But our most creative treatment of this room, and our bedroom as well, is that we built the beds. These are platform beds on 4x4s that allow what we affectionately call UBS, under bed storage. So there are large plastic tubs under there that you can store clothes or extra blankets and linens, that kind of thing. Now everybody, especially kids, wants to bring a friend to the beach. So this little chair here opens up to a single futon bed. So while my son will sit in there and watch TV, if he has a friend or two, he can sleep up to 3 people in this room, which certainly is convenient. And if we have a couple, then they use this room, and then my son has to sleep on the couch downstairs. But I want to show you Kira's room. Come on. This is Kira's room, and she picked out the color scheme in here as well. But in order to accommodate different sleeping arrangements, we purchased this loft bed at IKEA. We didn't want to purchase a bunk set with a double on the bottom, because most of the time they're turned the other way, and one person gets trapped up against the wall. So we purchased the loft, bought a traditional, very simple metal frame double bed to go on the bottom, and turned it perpendicular. We were very careful, though, to make sure that the loft that we purchased would accommodate this. Not all of them did. Now, she has a new window, and I'm about to replace the curtains that used to be up here, but I also want to point out this original light fixture. I'm not sure at what time electricity was added to the house, because it was built in the 1800s, but whenever it was, that's the original light fixture. And we moved it from where it would hit the bunk. My husband extended it up, and it forms a nice reading light for the upper bunk. But I'm going to use this single curtain here for privacy. And unfortunately, there's a deck right outside Kira's window, so we're going to put that in, but you can slide it over to let the light in during the day. And then this really fun curtain. And notice that I'm only using tension rods. I really can't bring myself to put additional holes in this very old woodwork. It's been patched and repaired so many times, but these cute little lime green curtains with lots of ribbons match the room perfectly. And note the beautiful walls that were done with terry cloth rags and 3 different color paints. My daughter and I worked on that together. And she has a unique room that's truly hers and can accommodate a sleepover of girls. Ocean Grove is an amazing town with a fascinating history. It was started in the 1800s by the Camp Meeting Association, which is part of the Methodist Church. I'm standing in the gazebo that marks the first well where they found water here in 1870. This is sort of the hub of what goes on around me, but right in front of me over here is the Auditorium bookstore. To my left is the Youth Temple, which is a relatively recent building, as the original one burned down, I believe, in the 60s or the 70s. But the most fascinating building of them all is the Great Auditorium, which stands behind me. It seats about 7,000. It is built entirely of wood, has an enormous organ in it, and was built in the late 1800s. There is an open grass area in front of it, and while it is clearly used for religious events, entertainers also come. Ray Charles did one of his last live performances there, and Johnny Mathis appeared last summer. Not sure who's coming this summer, but it should always be interesting. For residents of the town, if you don't want to pay for the tickets to go in, there's a grassy area. You bring a lawn chair, so you may not get to see the performers. We got to hear ABBA last summer from lawn chairs. So let me show you the buildings and, of course, the tents. The Great Auditorium was built in 1894. It is entirely made of wood, and it is the third structure and by far the grandest of them all. It was made entirely by contributions and volunteer labor, and the money was raised in an amazingly short period of time. It was also built in an amazingly short period of time, and how they did this amazing work so quickly in the 1800s, I will never know. The building is flanked by the tents on all sides. At one time, there were over 600 tents in town. Now they're down to about 148. The tents are lived in all summer long. The canvas goes up in the spring around Memorial Day and comes down sometime in mid-September. Attached to each of the tent structures is a small wooden structure that contains a kitchen and a bathroom. Now, there isn't much for privacy, but it certainly is nostalgic. The tents and the Great Auditorium formed the center of activity, but as the tents disappeared, magnificent Victorian houses were built. There was an interesting design in that the houses closest to the beach are set back from the road, so that houses further away from the beach are set slightly closer until they come right up to the sidewalk, allowing a view of the ocean for several blocks back. Many of you may remember hearing that there was a time when you were not allowed to have cars in the town of Ocean Grove on Sundays at all. People would move their cars outside of the town limits and walk back in. Now, the town is very small, so that was not entirely impossible if it was inconvenient. It's also a dry town. However, the parking was challenged sometime in the 80s, and that is no longer part of Ocean Grove. It was challenged as a result of someone getting a ticket for having a car on Sunday. And now, as a result, the town is no longer independent and has been incorporated in the town of Neptune. This is Reverend Stokes, one of the founding fathers of the Camp Meeting Association and ultimately the Township of Ocean Grove. Ocean Grove is an incredibly dog-friendly town, and dogs are everywhere, and most of the stores have treats for the little ones that come in to visit. Dave's Ice Cream Parlor is a place you have to visit in Ocean Grove. It is the only building, only business that remains to this day the original business. It was started in the 1800s. Not only do they have a great selection of ice cream, but they have a lovely outdoor patio area to sit in and enjoy it. So I can finally say we're pretty much done with all the work down here and are looking forward to many opportunities of enjoying a day at the beach, which is just 3 blocks that way. And when that's done, to sit on this porch and enjoy the lovely evenings. And I'm going to sit in my favorite spot. So, we'll see you next time at Home with Peggy.